Hey guys, and welcome to Just for the Record. I'm glad you made it here, and welcome to Vinyl Tag 2022. The best way to start the year off, isn't it? I've got all of my records sorted out, and you will find the original video in the description, as well as all of the 22 questions if you want to make your own video. First of all, let's start with the favorite album purchased in 2021. And, well, let's keep Vinyl Tag 2021 going because I said I wanted to get, or the album that I wanted to get the most was Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. And, well, here it is, Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison. I've bought quite a few records over the year, and this is just one of the highlights that I find myself to be the most interesting, or the one that I most sought after. And yeah, I love this record. I wanted to have an original, and I do. The record itself was in a very good condition. Okay, and I love Johnny Cash. The next one, an album by the first person you saw live. Actually, three people. Green Day, American Idiot, the only Green Day album I do own on vinyl, and my absolute favorite Green Day album, actually one of my favorite albums of all time. The only Green Day album to rank within my favorite albums of all times, actually. I love American Idiot. It is a concept album of a young man growing up in the suburbs and getting a little bit corrupted by the big city he moves to. I love it, and you will presumably already know it. Number 3, we're not going to waste too much time because otherwise we're going to take ages. An album by a duo, and yeah, which duo is in existence, which musical duo is in existence that is more iconic than Simon and Garfunkel. I saw Art Garfunkel live about 3 years ago with my mother. Actually, that was a birthday present I made for her. And she was very happy, and actually Art, even though I think he's well over 70, still does have a very, very nice singing voice. But Paul Simon is the genius behind all of that. He is such an amazing songwriter, one of the best songwriters ever, no doubt about that. And they've been so successful. Yeah, and this is obviously the concert in Central Park, which you can find on YouTube. Very, very, well, nice to listen to and to watch. Number 4. An album in the shrink. Yeah, and if you would have asked me that about 3 days ago, I could have showed you something, but now I cannot. Yeah, I'm sorry. I tend to unwrap my albums, and I'm not really keeping them for keeping the value. I mean, it's nice to keep the value and to store them correctly and to put sleeves onto them and into them, but well, I want to listen to the music. I'm not buying it because I want to make an investment. The next one is a concept album, and yeah, it is Pink Floyd's Animals. If you know me, you know this is my favorite album of all time, and when you give me the opportunity to talk about Animals and to talk about Pink Floyd in general, which is my favorite band of all time, I'll take it. Well, Animals is my favorite Pink Floyd record, and Pink Floyd is my favorite band, so it obviously should be my favorite album of all time. Animals is a concept album, as many Pink Floyd albums are, and the theme of the record is, or the topic that the record tackles, is the disgusting side of business society, I'd say. We've got 3 major tracks on it, which would be pigs, sheep, and dogs, with pigs being the big business leaders and, well, the pigs, with dogs being the lower businessmen who try to fight up and don't care if they hurt anybody doing so, and sheep is, well, us. Very nice album. You should definitely listen to it if you haven't. Okay, an album you've not played yet. Yeah. I'm a little bit disappointed by myself that I haven't listened to that. At least not on vinyl. I, of course, know the album, and I've listened to the album, seen live tracks on YouTube. This is Aqualung by Jethro Tull. Jethro Tull in itself is a band that I should really love, and I do love now, but I should have loved them about for the last 5 or 6 years when I started to get into older music. Actually, I'm getting old, it's 8 or 9 years. But I didn't. I somehow didn't. And I discovered them, I think it was in 2020, late 2020. And I've stuck to them since. And this is the only album of them that I got till now, because it is my favorite record of them. But there are many, many more. A Minstrel's Banquet or whatever. There's Thick as a Brick. You name it. And this is even the Steve Wilson remix, so I haven't ever listened to this version of it. You know what? I'm going to put it onto the table right here. And later on I'm going to move it over there to the record player, and then I'm going to listen to it. I promise. An artist you've discovered in 2021, and I was really hesitant of putting one up there because, well, there was COVID and I had quite a bit of time for music, but one of those artists that I found really stood out, and that was Chris Tone Kingfish Ingram. I love the blues. I am a big fan of blues, and I've gotten a much bigger fan of blues for the last few years. And he is just amazing. Such a young guy. I think he's 22 or 23 years old, and he oozes blues. Obviously, he's from, I don't know, Mississippi or something like that. One of the southern states of America. I think you have to be, you have to live there to be a real blues musician. No, just kidding, obviously. But he is the embodiment of blues. And what I think when I see him play, see him sing, or listen to him play, listen to him sing, I'm reminded of the big blues greats, Albert King, Howlin' Wolf, and most of all, B.B. King. And you're not doing something wrong when I associate you with B.B. King. That's something I have to say. Let's not waste time and carry on. The next is a live album, and I've also made this a double category because it is the last record I've purchased. About a week ago, actually. And it's the one that's thing on the platter right now, at least one of the three is. We'll go with Oasis Live at Knebworth. Yeah, it is a recent release. I think it's from October, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's Oasis. I'm not the biggest Oasis fan. I really like them, and I always wanted to have a record of them. But the only versions that I found were originals of What's the Story, Morning Glory, which I would love to have. But they were a little bit expensive at the time, and I opted for buying something else. I think nowadays I would presumably pick them up. And maybe I do have to make a little record buying tour in Hamburg. And I'm going to take you with me, if I'll do so, because Hamburg is actually a very great, an absolute great town for buying records. You've got so many record stores and different record stores. And I definitely do want to get more into hip-hop records. I've listened to hip-hop, especially German hip-hop, for my life, actually. So that's going to be a nice thing to search for albums from like Dr. Dre, the Wu-Tang Clan, and even newer artists like Kanye West. I mean, you can give him a lot of shit, but he's a good musician. If you're walking in the hip hop sphere, he is a good musician. Please don't turn off and tell me that I don't know anything about music. It is obviously he's a different kind of musician than there's Jethro Tull, Oasis, or Pink Floyd are. The next one is an album from a different continent. I'm living in Germany, which I've just spoiled, so Europe is out of competition. Where do we want to go next? The question is, America, a little bit lame. I do own a few Asian records, but I cannot tell you much about them. I just like the music. So I've picked something Australian. And since you know what music I listen to, at least now you know, you will presumably know which band it is. But it's not a record that you will come see, I think. It is Power Age by AC/DC. Who else? The Australian band. Sorry, other Australian bands, which I can't even name one. And you're going to hate me for that. Yeah, it's Power Age. And I think it's the most underrated AC/DC album out there. It is hard-hitting. It has got Bon Scott, which is a big plus point. Nothing against Brian Johnson, but the feeling of having Bon Scott is a different one. And yeah, listen to Power Age. It's right up there with my favorite AC/DC albums. I think Let There Be Rock would be my favorite if we were really talking about that, but this one comes close to Back in Black, which would be my second pick. Let's carry on. 10 albums. Number 10, an album with a price sticker on it, and I hate it to be there. It is one of my favorite records as well. It is Darkness on the Edge of Town by Bruce Springsteen, a record that I got into the last vinyl tech last year. And yeah, look at this. It's abysmally big. It's really ugly. Yeah, but I got it from a good friend of mine who runs a store, used to run a store. He just closed at the end of the year, which is very sad. But I can understand the decision because he's moving on in a different direction, working-wise. And I love Bruce Springsteen. And I said I wanted to have Darkness because Darkness on the Edge of Town is my favorite Bruce Springsteen album. Actually, one of my 2 favorites, but we're gonna get to the other one. And yeah, he sorted out 2 copies for me, and he said both are good, but the quality of the record itself is better in here, but the jacket looks better on the other one. And I opted for the better sound quality, which is presumably the more reasonable thing to do, but, well, the fucking sticker. Fucking sticker. A punk or new wave album, talking about German. I wanted to have one German album in here, and I opted for this category because one of my favorite bands of all time. And yeah, we're keeping this favorite band's favorite record. Of course I do, because if I put something in here, I tend to like it. And if I buy it, I tend to like it. And if I spend lots of money on it, which I did on some of those. I mean, even the Oasis one, which is a new one, is at 50 euros, which is something like $65, $60, I think. It's a heavy price. But some others, like Simon and Garfunkel, for example, was just 2 euros, which is fine. Yeah, and this one was expensive because the band didn't release so much vinyl back in the 80s, which is Die Ärzte, which could be translated into the Doctors. Das ist nicht die ganze Wahrheit, which can be translated into this is not the entire truth. If you know Die Ärzte, you'll know Westerland, which is a song, and this is on here, for example. The entire record is very, very nice. We had a few people here, Corona conform, obviously, over New Year's Eve, and this was one of the records that was spun, and it was, yeah, it kept the party going. No, but it is a really, really good record, and I love this band. I've seen them live in Belgium once. That was in early 2019 when they made a club tour around Germany, like Denmark, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Austria, stuff like that, and Belgium. Yeah, and they've played for, I don't know, 4 hours. I couldn't stand afterwards. There were about 700, 800 people in this venue, which is great because they usually play in much bigger stages with 10 or 20,000 people. And we were so close to the band. Everybody was in the first row. They wanted to because all of us was churning around. The people were dancing, jumping, and the band had so much fun. They played till nobody could stand anymore. And I would still, I could say it was the best concert I ever went to. And I've seen quite a few bands. Linkin Park. I've seen Green Day. I've seen many German bands. I've seen Blink-182, Rancid, and so on, so on, so on. Art Garfunkel, for example. Even though that is a different ballpark. So, the next one, a box set. And I've got to say, I've cheated a little bit. We do own a few box sets, but I've picked out a specific one, which, obviously we did, which is Technology by Don Broco, a band that I've seen live as the opening act for Mike Shinoda in Hamburg. And I fell in love with them. They usually the opening act isn't celebrated as much as the act itself, Mike Shinoda in this case, but Don Broco was hell out of there. Everybody was dancing. Yeah, it was fun. The album itself is just one album. It comes with 2 picture discs, which both look the same, but they look great. Actually, the only picture disc that we own. Then there is a lyric sheet of the title track, but that's not the good stuff. The good stuff we're coming to now. Then we've got a little poster, which is signed by the entire band, all 4 autographs, which is nice. Oh, we've got something in a shrink. There is a CD in here, which is on a shrink. Okay, at least one thing in the shrink, so I'll take that back. We've got all categories, even though we're going to use one double. And the most exciting thing, and something that I haven't really seen in any box set, this is a little leaflet which has the exact same 4 autographs on it, which is nice. And inside of here is a cutout of the backdrop that the band uses with actual Don Broco dirt on it. I love it. It's such a great gimmick. And it was a present, actually, that my girlfriend got from a few friends of her, and she was really, really happy about this because she obviously endorsed this hobby with me as well. She is a fan of it. At least I hope she isn't lying. Oh, there we go. And yeah, she got this for Christmas, I think. Not gonna say anything to that. She got this for Christmas, I think, and she was very happy because obviously this is a very, very cool gimmick, and not just getting the album, but getting this entire set around this is great. And Don Broco is a good band. If you haven't heard of them, go give them a spin. They've actually grown quite a bit in the time that I know them. Okay, next, an album with a sporting theme. There are a few things. I was thinking about Park Life from Blur, which is dog racing, which is kind of a sport. Not a great one, but it's sport. But I ended up with this one, which is Let's Dance by David Bowie. Because if I get a chance of talking about David Bowie, I'll take it. I love David Bowie. What more should I say? One of my favorite records of all time is Aladdin Sane, which is somewhere here. Actually, it's exactly there. I love it. Let's Dance is strong as well. I'm not entirely sure, but is Let's Dance the record that Stevie Ray Vaughan is on? I'm not entirely sure. But it was David Bowie who employed Stevie Ray Vaughan on one of his tracks. I'm not entirely sure if it's Let's Dance, but well, I don't know anything. Actually, there are quite a few things I don't know. But you can correct me on that. Maybe I'm wrong. And if you do so, I will be very, very glad. A jazz album is number 14. Miles Davis, Sketches of Spain. This is a record put together, or a recording session put together by Miles Davis, the man, the myth, the blues artist himself, and Gil Evans. Caution, not Bill Evans, Gil Evans. And they've made this record. If you know Miles Davis, you know how good he was, and you know what impact he had on the jazz scene. Yeah. So my pick is Sketches of Spain from Miles Davis and Gil Evans. The next, and best of record. I'm not the biggest fan of best of albums. I usually tend to not buy them, but I got a few as presents and just because I like the cover. And one of them is, well, no, let's start this differently. I thought, why picking just best of Beach Boys, best of the Beatles, best of Fleetwood Mac, when you can pick best of rock and roll with all of the greats like the Rolling Stones, Cliff Richards and the Beatles, and so many more. Chuck Berry, all of them are on here. And yeah, it's a best of record. I can't tell you that much about them. I'm not the biggest fan. I tend to buy albums usually. My second pick would be somewhere here. I don't know. It was a best of Beach Boys record. Best of Beach Boys record, which I just got as a present as well. Number 16, an album with 8 people or more on it. And I'm cheating a bit here. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band talking the Beatles. I know, it's not people. They are cardboard cutouts with the exception of John Lennon, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, and Paul McCartney. But the cover is so iconic, even though this one is fairly used down. But this it's so iconic. It's been one of the first Beatles records that I've bought, and it was fucking expensive. But it's Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, a record that everybody should have listened to. I don't think it's the strongest Beatles record. I think, actually, I know it's lame, but I think you should give this to Abbey Road. Maybe even Revolver. I love Revolver. The White Album is a little bit too stacked for me, even though Helter Skelter is presumably my favorite Beatles song. Okay, it's getting confusing now, and I'm getting confused talking about confusion. So yeah, my pick for 8 people or more is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Can we bring in another in time before my camera says 15 minutes are over? I don't think so. A soundtrack, and I've cheated a bit again. Because I haven't really picked out a soundtrack, but let me explain. We've got The Lord of the Rings, or music inspired by The Lord of the Rings, and it is by Bo Hansen. I love this record. I really do love it. It's obviously not the one that is from the Peter Jackson movies, which is awesome, just awesome. This is different and it hits differently, and this is from 1972, so it's quite a while ago. And you could call it a soundtrack to the books, even though it's not official, but I think it's clear that he read the books and and this was enough inspiration for him to make this album. And I love it. We actually do own a few soundtrack for the musical Hair, for example, which is also a pick that I would love to take because my mother loved this musical. But I tended to go with The Lord of the Rings because I love The Lord of the Rings. Read the books, seen all the films in all of their like 20 different versions, and what can I say? I love it. Show some VCLT. It's a pleasure to do that. Paul Simon, even though we had him already, with Graceland, is a record that a friend gave to me. And she actually gave me a few more records, including, I don't know where it is now. It's obviously with D. Somewhere in here, it's the Dire Straits Brothers in Arms. And Dire Straits Brothers in Arms and Graceland have been two of the records that I wanted to get, but I couldn't find a nice original copy of. And this one, let me just take it out of the sleeve. It looks like it's new. And it's original. I haven't re-sleeved it. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I should really do that. That slipped through. Usually we do re-sleeve all of the records before we put them into the shelf. Okay. Yeah, it's Graceland's, and it's, in my opinion, the best Paul Simon record. Even better than the songbook of Paul Simon, which holds my favorite Paul Simon song on it, which is getting confusing. Confused again. Is this English? I'm German, so I can do wrong pronunciations. Okay, the next one. An album with no writing on the jacket. Yeah, it is King Crimson, but it's not what you think. In the Wake of Poseidon. Look at it. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. King Crimson is one of those bands that really, really knew how to make astonishingly good-looking album covers. In Court of the Crimson King, obviously, is one of the most iconic album covers of all time. I love the album cover of Islands, for example. Or Lizard is another one that I really enjoy. And yeah, it's like a band of it's like the early Uriah Heep. I really like the early Uriah Heep covers, which are up there. I'm not entirely sure if you can see them through the camera. Yeah, the next one. Number 20. We're getting close to the end. A 7-inch single. Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. And you will now think, what an idiot. We're talking about 7-inch singles, not albums. But maybe you know, presumably you know, there is a single in here. Because Stevie, who is in my opinion the best pop artist of all time, I've said it, I'm going to stick to this, put 2 LPs in here and still wasn't finished with putting his songs on this album, so we opted for, well, a different way and putting a 7-inch single in here as well. So the record is stacked. It's, I think, his best work ever. Like, it hands down his best work ever, even though Talking Book and the entire, like, 4... I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but there are 4 records that he did in conclusion that were just masterpieces. Fulfilling the Self-Finale. Too good. But Songs in the Key of Life is my favorite of Stevie Wonder. Okay, the next one. A colored vinyl album, which is actually the second last one. Si vis pacem para bellum by Seether. We're getting a little bit newer again. I'm going to put this out of the sleeves. I'm going to give you a close-up shot when I've talked about this, so you can see what I'm talking about. Is this the right one? Yes. This is the record itself. It's in marbled, yeah, well, which is it? Purple vinyl with red splatters on it. But the backside has got a print, or, well, it's not printed. It's laid into the vinyl of the album cover, which is great. And I love the color. It really suits the band. And it's a very good record. If you haven't listened to Seether, you should give them a spin. And if you know something about grunge or alternative music, you'll presumably already know them. And the last one, an album from 1982, equal 40 years of age. And I've went for an artist that we had already, but, well, I love him. Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska. 40 years of Nebraska. Actually, fairly close, exactly 40 years of Nebraska. It is one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen records, with Darkness on the Edge of Town. And the way that this record has been written, that he wrote it when he was isolating himself just with a guitar and a harmonic, and writing those songs, playing those songs, recording those early versions, going into the studio, wanting to record versions with his band, and they are all telling him, you know what, Bruce, you know what, boss, it's the stuff that you did was better. And so he kept his original, most of this, original recordings, and use them. Yeah, and that has been my vinyl tech. I hope I haven't wasted too much of your time. And we're going to talk about my absence in a different video. Well, what is there to say? What is left to say? Thank you very much. I hope you will stick around, because I promise there will be more videos. And I had a pleasure of making this one. Have a nice day, fellow community. Goodbye.